Abby Scott. I'm the Assistant Dean of the MBA Career Management Group at Berkeley Haas, which is located on the campus of UC Berkeley in the San Francisco Bay Area. I run our career management group, which means that we support our MBA community, whether you're in the full-time program, in one of our working professional programs, or in our executive programs. And we work with the students as their partner along their career journey, not just from the time that they start in the program, but for life. We offer our services and access to our community and programs for a lifetime. So it's the beginning of a very long relationship. So I supervise a wonderful team. Our team is comprised of career coaches who work with the students on the classic things that you think about: resume, LinkedIn profile, telling your story, and articulating how your skill sets are relevant to your future career. They work with students also on kind of figuring out what it is they may want to do next if they are coming in as more of an explorer. Then we have an employer relations team who's really focused on a number of different industries. They're a little more externally focused. They work with our alumni, employers, recruiters, business professionals to really stay current on what's happening globally in business, and to stay connected to industry trends and people that are going to support our students. Naturally, they're the ones that identify job opportunities and bring those to campus. And then, of course, we have a team of marketing and operations professionals to just keep things moving forwards. We are a pretty small program as far as full-time MBA programs go. This class was a class of around 290 students, so we tend to be somewhere between the 250 to 300 student per class cohort. It's a really global group of students, now alumni. It's about 37% international. It's also about 37% women in the class. We tend to have students with quite a bit of work experience in this cohort. 5.5 years of work experience was the average for the class of 2023 coming into the program. And then there's also diversity in terms of background of industries, as well as race and ethnicity. So again, tons of diversity, many countries represented. What we love about the diversity of experiences is it just makes for a really rich environment, not only in the classroom, but also as we present these students to employers. Quite a bit of unique backgrounds to choose from and to draw upon for future career experiences. We tend to attract students that are interested in having a big impact in the next phase of their career. And so that really can come from a variety of different functions, roles, and industries and geographic areas. So there's not any one type that we're looking for. It's really that we're looking for people who are excited to advance in their career, to become leaders in the future, and have a narrative around not just what they want to do in the short term, but really longer term. So our employment reports are published online, so I invite you to take a look at the details. But let me just summarize briefly. We do tend to have the largest concentration of graduates go into either consulting or the technology industry. That's been the case for the last many years, and this year was no exception. The roles that they take are varied. I can talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I think the one thing that I have noticed this year, and it's been a trend we've seen more and more in recent years, is that there's been a growth in the impact careers. And what I mean by impact careers are careers where students can really make a difference. whether it's healthcare, whether it's real estate and affordable housing, let's say. Climate tech has been a huge growth area, renewables for us within the energy sector. There's a lot happening in and around our market, but also globally, of course. And we have a wonderful program and group that helps to support the students along those journeys. Even within the investments community, even students that choose finance careers, we're seeing a trend toward students who are interested in impact there, whether it's a venture capital role in climate tech or an ESG investing role. So that has been a trend that I think we've seen that has really exploded in recent years. All that to say, consulting and tech do continue to be our largest industries, and I think will be for the next few years. Well, this is one of the measures that we look at really closely because we know that an investment in an MBA is large. And so we really want to make sure that our students are getting that return on investment. And so our number one metric that we track internally is what was the source? What was the primary source of the job offer? Because it's really important to us that that job came because of their Haas experience. And so just taking a step back, we really look at what is that school-wide experience, whether it came from a faculty conversation, whether it came from a member of our alumni community, whether it came from a job posting that was facilitated by our office or an introduction perhaps that we made. We don't care as long as the job came up because of the experience that the student and the grad had at Berkeley Haas. And so, as I said, we track that very closely. This last year, that number was around 70% were employed because of something related to Haas. And by the way, this is all self-reported, so we know that sometimes a student may do the initial outreach to a company, and then they may get connected to an alum or someone from our team can help facilitate further introductions or interview prep, that kind of thing to get them further along. But the primary source of offer in that case may have been student-driven, whereas I do think in many of these cases, that other 30%, there was some sort of support from the community. One thing I will also say before we leave this question is that the notion of on-campus recruiting, which is something that I think has historically been a big part of MBA programs, and Haas is no exception, that has really changed. The pandemic really shifted the way that employers recruit and hire. It enabled them to interview virtually, to reach out to more campuses, which is great because they are able to see a broader pool of students, and our students are able to reach a broader range of companies this way. And so while what we measure now is not necessarily on-campus interviewing, so some of it does actually happen, especially in industries that do more of the cohort hiring, like investment banking and consulting. But what we really look at is, what are the Haas managed relationships? That's what really matters to us. Where do we have strong relationships, as I mentioned, driven by that employer relations team? That's such a key part of our office. So those are a few things to think about as you look at the different schools and how they talk about the source of the job offer. We start working with students very early on. In fact, the summer before students matriculate, we're introduced to the class and we invite them to start their career preparation. We have a series of weekly assignments over the summer to really make sure that the students are ready to hit the ground running when classes begin. It's unfortunate that they have to start so early, but in order to be competitive, we have found that it's important to do that. So the assignments over the summer are fairly structured and just enable students to have the confidence to begin to meet with a career coach when they land on campus, and then to start to talk to employers who do actually want to talk to students pretty soon after they matriculate. So our summer programming includes some of the foundational tools like resume, as I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn, profile, writing a great cover letter. Some employers are still looking for cover letters. Importantly, quite a bit about networking, connecting, both the tools, how to do that using the Haas network, but also the logistics and the conversation starters. When it comes to compensation, our mean base salary is around $163,000 per year, $1,000 per year. And that's just the base compensation. The median is even a little bit higher at 167, just below that, annually. In addition to that, about 70% of our students do earn a signing bonus as part of their package. That amount last year, the average was around $36,777. So those numbers are money right out of the gate. In addition to that compensation, a lot of our students earn stock as part of their package. And those packages vest differently. Some are stock options and others are stock grants. But we know that students going into the tech industry, biotech, health tech, prop tech, which is a segment of real estate, fintech, etc., those packages often do come with some sort of stock. And so overall, about 40% of our graduates can count on options or grants, which again do tend to increase the total comp over time. Technology and consulting continue to be the top two industries for the Berkeley Haas community, which makes sense. These are very impressive and growth industries, and have been for the last few years. They also provide a lot of opportunity for MBAs, whether it's joining a consulting firm, a management consulting firm, and getting to have the opportunity to have an impact early on in your career, working as part of a team on a strategic project for a company, usually at the C-suite level, or within a tech company. And students tend to join a variety of different roles within a tech company. Product management is quite popular, finance, business operations, which is more of a strategy role for students that have come from consulting. That tends to be popular. Human resources, operations, there are a whole variety of different roles within tech that students find. So those are the biggest two industries, followed by financial services is usually our third, and was again this year. That can be anything from investment banking to venture capital and private equity, a little bit of commercial banking, fintech, etc. Healthcare and biotech tends to be next, followed by students joining energy companies. And again, a lot of those, as I mentioned earlier, are in the renewables space, climate-related companies. Real estate is something that Berkeley Haas is also well known for, and there are a variety of really interesting jobs in real estate that our students go into. A handful will go into nonprofit government, but it's actually a pretty small percent for us. And I don't think I mentioned consumer packaged goods, but that continues to be a small but healthy component to the industries that students go into. In terms of top functions, consulting is the #1 function. Most of that is working for management consulting firms, but some of that is internal consulting within companies. Finance is the next most popular function, followed by general management and product management, even more technical product management for some of those engineers that have joined our program and want to stay in a slightly more technical role, but moving more to the product and consumer side. Our Our employers are as varied as our graduates. Our top two hiring firms were both consulting firms, McKinsey #1 and Bain Consulting #2, Bain and Company. We also had quite a few students go into some of the large tech companies, with Amazon being the #1 hiring company there. And there are a variety of others. One thing I will say is, while we do have big numbers of students going into some of these larger companies, we actually have quite a few different companies represented in our top hiring list. It doesn't need to be a large company in order to become a top employer. And by that, I mean a top employer may only have 2 or 3 hires. And we do see that in some of the mid-size and mid-sized companies that are growing quickly, as well as some of the startups and smaller organizations. So huge variety in companies. We've got the big ones, but then a lot of students also tend to gravitate to the mid-size and smaller companies as well. We have the good fortune of having a business school that's in a place that is a desirable place, where I think many students come thinking that they're going to stay just for a couple of years and then head back home. But oftentimes they fall in love with the Bay Area and do choose to stay locally. So we tend to have more than half of our class stay in the Bay Area. But I will say it's definitely gotten more and more difficult in recent years to obtain a visa to work in the U.S. That said, we are a STEM certified program, which allows international students to stay up to 3 years on their student visa, which has made a big difference with employers. So all that to say, our students largely stay in the Bay Area. Many do go back home as well, but the number that have gone to international locations tends to be only around 10 to 12 each year, and this year was no exception. So in terms of raw numbers, again, we're a small class of 290, but very few actually for that first job after graduation, I think largely because of OPT and the STEM extension that our program allows for. Many do have their first job in the US, and then we find may head home after a few years, or may stay. It's 10 to 12 students, so not percentage but raw numbers. The largest group has gone to Asia in recent years, representing one of the larger communities. Again, we don't have huge concentration from any one country, but China, Taiwan, India have been some of the larger communities in our recent classes, followed very quickly by some European communities, as well as some African countries, as well as some Latin American countries. So there is a lot of diversity, but as I look at the employment report and where students are going after graduation, Asia comes up as the #1 continent outside of the US.